Hi, my name is Alex Jacques and I make custom straight razors. You can find more about me and my razors at www.customrazors.com. In this video, I want to specifically address one technique that I use to hone many of my own custom razors that I make. That technique isn't generally found on shaving forums online, or I haven't heard it much talked about in terms of honing straight razors, but I find that on a smiling edge razor it is my preferred method. This is the razor that I'll be demonstrating on today. It's Damascus steel. It's my own brand razor. The scales are fiberglass laminate, which is called G10. Basically, you'll see that the edge of this razor is not a straight line. It follows the sway of the spine. That's called a smiling razor, a smiling edge, or a sway back. These razors are a little bit more difficult to hone because it doesn't lie flat on the hone at all times. One of the first things I want to talk about is hone selection. And when it comes to hones, I'm kind of a minimalist, and as you can see, I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to shaving. Also, I don't shave that often, which is kind of ironic. But anyway, when I'm using hones, I don't really switch around to a lot of different brands or grits. I have a main stable of hones that I generally use on every razor. That starts off with a DMT D8C, which is a 325 grit. It's a coarse diamond hone. That I only really use for setting bevels on razors or really repairing a damaged edge. After that, I go to the Norton 1000 stone. This is kind of a bevel setter. That's generally what I use for that. After that, I go to a combination Norton 4000, 8,000. You see mine is cut down to, I guess it's about 1.5 inches wide. Personally, for honing a lot of smiling edge razors or suede blades, I find that the narrow hones help a lot in that aspect, but you definitely don't need to go that route. After the 8,000, I go to a 12K Chinese hone. Find them at Woodcraft. This is the 2-inch version, I believe, and that hone, get different opinions from different guys. For me, it's been the real finishing hone that I always use. You can get a lot of variation. It's a natural stone, so one might not be as good as another. I find that mine has been great for me, and guys love the edges that I get on my razors. With that being said, any hones that are kind of in the 1K range, the 4K range, 8K, 12K, anything in that kind of progression would work well. After the 12K hone, I generally go to 0.5 micron chromium oxide. You can paste it on any medium. I use the dry powder on a bunch of stuff, and that'll give you the real fine finished edge for comfortable shaving. One thing I do when honing a razor is to use a small microscope. This is just a Radio Shack model microscope with zoom up to 100 times and focus to check the edge as I progress through the honing process. You can get them pretty cheaply. I don't have a nice microscope setup, so it'll be hard for me to show you exactly what I'm looking at, but basically what I look at is the edge to make sure both sides of the bevel meet at a perfect edge to make sure the razor is shave ready. So here's the razor ready for honing. I use one piece of electrical tape on the spine of all razors that I hone. It's just important to make sure that the tape has even coverage on both sides and that it isn't bunched up or crinkled in any way. Another thing to note is that I use this tape, which is Scotch Super 88 vinyl electrical tape. It's generally a thicker electrical tape. It's professional grade. It's a little more expensive, but it tends to last longer. I end up changing the tape whenever I see enough wear on each side. So I'll just go by the feel, but you never want it to wear through to the spine. I find that using tape, it's never going to change the geometry of the razor enough to affect it probably within your own lifetime. So now I'll show you the technique that I use to set the bevel. So again, I'm using a Norton 1K hone. It's wet right now, and this is setting the bevel. I use a rolling X pattern, but instead of doing a standard rolling X pattern, which is that, I concentrate on one side at a time. So I'll keep it on this one side. Note I'm not using a lot of pressure, I'm just making sure there's contact at the end of the spine when the razor gets to the end of that rolling stroke. But I'll count these out generally in groupings of 5, 10, or 20. So there's 10. I'll flip. Again, I'll flip to the other side, and generally after experience and a lot of practice, you'll get a feel for when to check the edge and also replace the tape on the spine. So now when I'm ready to check the edge of the razor, I wipe it with a microfiber cloth. I kind of do a little strop on both sides to make sure the edge is dry. And I'll generally take the microscope and lay it flat on the edge. Now this is only at the 1K level. You don't want to do this at any higher levels with the hones, because you will damage the edge, or you could damage the edge. So I'll pretty much rest the razor like this and then go along the edge, and I'll be able to see how I'm progressing there. Again, I'm looking for an exact meeting of the edge, not a meeting like this and then a flat portion at the top. I'll also check the edge by laying the microscope flat on it like this, and you can see along the edge there, it'll kind of be bright on one side, and then the dark edge is what you're looking for. You want to make sure that is all clean, no burrs, no sharp, jagged areas. So once I'm done with the 1K level, I'll move on to the 4K. Again, I'll change the piece of electrical tape on the spine with every change in grit of the razors, and wash the razor off, make sure there's no cross-contamination. Again, I'll go straight into the 4K with the continual rolling X pattern. To me, I use this pattern mostly, again, for smiling edges, and because I just find it to be a lot faster than a repeating stroke where you keep having to pause at the end of it. I'll be able to get 10 laps in a few seconds. So I'll go on honing at the 4K level till I come to a point where I find that the razor is ready to move on. Now this technique takes some practice to make sure that both the heel and the toe of the edge are in contact with the razor on every stroke. So you really have to be diligent in terms of keeping it that way. Again, there's little pressure on the razor. Now I don't really count how many total strokes I'm doing at each level. What I do is make sure I have an even number of strokes on both sides, and I listen to the sound that the razor makes on the hone. Each grit level will have kind of a different sound. It takes some close attention to hear that, and through experience you'll be able to realize it. And also the feel that the razor has on the hone. As the edge gets finer and more shave ready, you'll be able to feel that it's smoother on the hone. Also, you'll be able to watch the water in front of the edge follows the edge down the hone. It doesn't escape underneath the edge. That means there's full contact there, and it's a real nice flush connection.